What it do, people? Welcome back to another episode. Thought I'd do something fun today. So I was recently building my latest project, and it got me thinking about all the weird, goofy stuff us mid-school riders used to do. So I figured I would make a top 10 list of the goofy things mid-school riders used to do. Now, this is going to be how I remember it, of course. So I'm probably going to butcher a few facts or a few ideas. But stick with me, man. In fact, some of these things you probably never even heard of, even if you are an old school or mid-school rider, but some of the goofy stuff I witnessed. So let's get right into it, right? Number 10, tiny handlebars. I don't know where it happened or why it happened. I don't know why I'm saying that, because I do know where and why it happened. Tiny handlebars, dude. 8-inch bars were always kind of like the standard handlebar, right? In fact, I remember S&M had the slam bar, and that was your default handlebar back in like the late 80s, early 90s, mid 90s. And then all of a sudden, handlebars started shrinking. They started getting smaller and they started getting narrower. And I'm going to put the blame on the Castile bar, right? S&M drops the Castile bar, and Brian Castillo is a shredder, dude. He's tearing it up on dirt and street and ramp, and he's making it look good. And we're seeing those little tiny handlebars that he's running, and we're thinking like, dude, maybe that's the secret to success. Not only that, but we were running those tiny handlebars like the Castile bar, typically on front-loaded stems or on inverted stems. So the whole idea was to get the front end as low as possible. The idea was, or how I thought it was at the time, was the lower the front end is, when you pull up, you're going to get more pop. The mechanics of it, by the time that front end comes up for you to hop, it's already very high up. You know, couple that with like these big 14, 15-inch rear ends we were running, and we thought we had like the mechanical advantage for a big hop. That's kind of how I thought it worked. I think that's why I thought it was a cool idea to run those tiny little handlebars. I ran Castile bars on a redneck stem for years, and to be honest, that's some of the highest hops I ever got were off that bike that I was riding. The other thing, too, is they would shrink, right? They would just get more narrow and narrow. And there was a point in time when I was running a bar called the Odyssey Milk Bar, and I had that thing chopped down to just 23 inches wide. And the idea behind the narrow bars was that a narrow bar is going to spin faster, right? So we thought like we could get bar spins off so much quicker and easier. Not to mention you got more clearance for your knees. And that was still in the era where it wasn't uncommon to have like these big chunky knee pads like sitting on the outside of your pants. So running like a full width bar, a lot of times those bars would end up snagging. Not to mention it would snag on the goofy ass baggy clothes we had too. So those narrow bars, they kept clearances good and they kept the bar spins fast. And watching riders like Edwin and pop off bar spins with those little tiny narrow handlebars, I mean, who are we to argue, right? So we fell in line and started making our bars lower, narrower, and that's tiny bars. And I've rambled long enough about tiny handlebars. All right, moving on. Number 9, padded seats, or the lack thereof. So there was an era where seats, I swear, were designed just to hurt you. Really, they weren't comfortable to sit on. In fact, a lot of them just had like these overly sharp, aggressive edges on them. I don't know if you guys remember, but the front of the GT saddles was like a beak. It was like a spoon, right? It was just designed to just dig in to the back of your calf and just open that thing up. And a bunch of companies copied that seat. Hoffman had a knockoff of that seat. In fact, Trey Jones, if you're listening, why would you bring that torture device back into the world? I don't know if you guys have seen Trey Jones' signature seat, but it's modeled off of that GT seat. It is one of the most brutal things you'll ever, experience, puncturing into the back of your leg. But that's not my point. The point was I said padded seats. So Ryan Nyquist comes out, 17 years old, seat post jacked to the moon, in this big, goofy-looking saddle. But the dude could pinch the seat and just whip bar spins better than anybody at the time. And so we all raised our seats up and started to try and figure out how can we make these seats comfortable for us to pinch these things for bar spins. Because the hemorrhoid seat that Primo had at the time that was popular, that would tear your knees up. Of course, the GT seat and the Hoffman seat and all these other seats, they would just tear your legs up. So we would take those seats, we would cut the beak off the front of the seat, and then we would wrap, I didn't do this, but I knew people that did. They'd wrap T-shirts, rags, anything they could to just pad that seat, and then they duct tape it up. I had a guy, it wasn't even a friend. I knew a kid at the skate park, and he had 2 shin pads on his seat with rags underneath, duct taped up. The seat was like this long and this fat. It was just this big loaf of bread, hideous as hell, sitting on a seat post. It was jacked up like a foot. But he could bar spin better than any of us, so shit if it didn't work, man. So, but I think it was super goofy. It looked terrible. In fact, I guess it was like an era of the uglier and the heavier the bike, the cooler you were. So, padded seats, you were goofy, man. Glad you're... Oh, and you know what saved the day? Where the goofy seats ended? Dave Mirra, his signature seat, that big, comfy couch Haro thing. Haro said, hey, let's just make a big, fat, squishy, comfy seat. And I wish people would still rock seats like that, man, because those were good. Boom. Oh, shit. The boomerang. There we go. Number 9's out of there. Number 8. Now, this might be something you didn't see. This is something I saw a lot of, though, surprisingly. Tennis balls in the wheels. What's up with tennis balls in the wheels? These glasses keep slipping off, so tennis balls in the wheels. The first time I saw it, I thought, like, why is there a tennis ball in your wheel? Like, it's not cool, right? I was a kid. I go up to the dude at the skate park. I said, why are you running a tennis ball in your wheel? And he said, oh, it keeps your spokes tight. What? Now, I'm sure he was trying to, just bullshit me a little bit. Or he believed it. Either way, I wasn't buying it. But lo and behold, I found a tennis ball out riding one time, and I stuck that thing in my wheel, and it stayed there for the summer. So I'm guilty as charged. The other things we would do, or that I'd seen done, is zip ties around the spokes. I knew a lot of people that would put zip ties on every spoke, like wherever the spokes crossed, they'd throw a zip tie around it, tighten it up, and the idea was it was going to keep your spokes in tension. Our bikes always were falling apart. We had the biggest, beefiest, most overbuilt stuff you'd ever see, but our headsets were always loose, our spokes were always loose, the wheel was always shifting. We'll get into some of that other stuff later. But yeah, tennis balls and zip ties on the wheel, goofy trend number 8 in the books. So let's go to number 7. Number 7, I'm calling this the cult of 4130. Are you a member? So, us mid-schoolers, man, we worship that 4130 moniker. So much so, to this day, I'm pretty positive that most you mid-school heads still use 4130 as your PIN number on something, right? Probably even your debit card. But that's what it was, man. That was our identity, like 4130 on everything. So much so, like, check this out. This girl I was dating back when fresh out of high school, this was her birthday present to me. A Zippo lighter engraved with 4130. And this is still cool, in my opinion. In fact, I still rep the 4130. How many of you bought lottery tickets and played the numbers 41 and 30? That is a holy number in the world of BMX, especially to us mid-school guys. I don't really see it rep the same way anymore with modern riders. But, yeah, if you were a mid-school head, you knew 4130 was everything. You probably even tried to get a custom plate on your little Honda Civic that said 4130, didn't you? Boom, there we go. That's number 7 in the books. Number 6. Oh, my gosh. This one cuts deep, man. This one hits close to home. Sticker hoarders, right? Are you a sticker hoarder? Were you a sticker hoarder? I was never really a sticker hoarder, although, all right? I still have a box of stickers that I'll never use. And some of these are just gems, right? This is gold to me, right? I don't have a 401k. I don't have stocks and bonds. But what I do have is a bag of factory fresh S&M Pitchfork stickers, huh? Yeah? Beyond stickers, patches too. Check out this standard patch. I got nothing to put this on, but I'll probably keep it for the rest of my life. Beyond brands, of course, we also like bands. There's a Pantera and White Zombie and the whole thing. You get to rep your favorite brand. Look at this. This is how many you would like these? Pretty cool, huh? But everything was about the stickers, man, and they knew it. Like Ride Magazine, like one of their incentives to get you to get a subscription back in the day was they would send you a sticker pack. Brands, they'd have these little ads to say, send a self-addressed stamped envelope or call us and send $3 or something, and we'll send you a sticker pack. And we would do it. I'd end up with stickers from all these brands. Nowhere to put them, so we just sticker everything. Any mid-school head with a car, believe it, their back of their Honda Civic or Ford Ranger or XJ Cherokee was just covered in brand stickers. And you knew how serious someone was about BMX if they had the big sticker, right? If they had the big standard bikes across the back window, or if they had the big S&M shield, like really repping hard. And still to this day, man, when I catch somebody like with an S&M shield on their vehicle or something, I'm just like, it's pretty cool, man. It's just letting the world know you ride. And, it might not be as goofy as I'm making it sound. I mean, we did sticker up everything, though. Our bikes were covered. Our refrigerators were covered. I mean, we'd slap them on our friends' cars and stuff. What'd you think I was going to say? It did sound like I was going to say something else, huh? Anyway, sticker hoarding. Enough on that topic, right? Bam. Number 5. I am going to call this Attack of the Clones. So number 5, Attack of the Clones. How do I describe this? This would be all of us who basically fanboyed on brands and riders and teams, videos, so much that we started to adopt and emulate the style, the fashion, the bike setups, the riding style. It's not a lot different now, right? People got their favorite rider and they go buy their rider's favorite frame. But we were in it deep, right? You knew when you saw like a Core Nostalgia clone with the big baggy pants, cuffed up, the spiky hair, the choker chain necklace, right? Trying to be shirtless all the time and shit. That was the Core Nostalgia clone. Me, I was from the Church of Sombra and L's Bells and like the diehard street dudes, right? So I was brakeless. I had a rattle can black bike. I was the guy that we'd all go to a skate park and I would try to find something in the parking lot to ride, right? I'm just like setting up pallets on the fence to do fakies and stuff. And so it influenced not only how we rode, but how we dressed, how we talked. And we would quote so many of our favorite pros or just videos and stuff like that. In fact, I want you in the comment section to drop your favorite quotes from BMX videos that you and your friends would use. Like, still to this day, if I call friends of mine, they'll be like, "What up now?
What up now?" You taking care of the business, and you know what? The business is good. You're taking care of the business on the real street. What up now? Well, there you have it.
Right? Shout out to Chris Toth. Or they'll say, we quote that Smoker Dave interview that he does at the beginning of the shutdown video, the video I'm playing right now in the background. I'll put a link in the bio. There's this entire parody talk show at the beginning of this video it's hilarious. But Smoker Dave, he just and R.I.P. to Smoker Dave, man. But that dude came with some funny shit, and still to this day, if I'm raging in traffic, I'll be plagued by humans.
Realistic life was plagued by humans. It's plagued by humans. Plagued by humans.
Shit like that. So check it out. You'll get the references. But please, in the comments, drop me your favorite quote from a BMX video or a pro or something said. And don't say where it's from. And let me see if I can guess what it is. All right. That's Attack of the Clones. Honorable mentions on the Attack of the Clones. Rat Boy, right? Knew a lot of dudes that were copying his style. Edwin, of course. Dude, not only Animal, but Edwin specifically changed the game, right? When Can I Eat dropped, it was Edwin clones for days. Of course, Troy McMurray, he talks about that in his podcast interview with the Traction Coffee dudes, that Scared of Normal podcast. He talks about after the War Pig dropped, how he'd go around, like when he traveled, he would just see a bunch of little McMurrays, like a bunch of clones. Who else did we have there that was often cloned? Anybody from Terrible One, of course. The whole bikes, the way they set them up, 2 pegs, the mixed tires, right? The knobby in the front, the street tire in the back, Aiken. So on and on. In fact, beyond dropping me your favorite quote, drop me your favorite rider that you stole style from, riding style, bike setup style, fashion, lingo, whatever. Boom. Attack of the Clones. That was number 5. I'm rambling. Number 4, Caveman Mechanics. I'm still a caveman mechanic, I guess. But specifically, what I'm talking about is, men, we used to smash everything in a place on our bikes. Our ability to work and build our own bikes was terrible. It's probably why our bikes are always falling apart. I was putting in a headset the other day with a bearing press, right? Just doing it the right way. But every time I put a headset in, I can't remember all the times. I can't forget all the times that I had a 2x4 and a hammer and we're smashing bearing cups in. My buddy bought a brand new STA 500 once, right? Saved up the whole summer, bought this frame, bought the Diacomp tank headset. We didn't have any tools to put the headset cups in, and we wanted to ride, right? So the bike shows up, UPS. We ain't got no money to go to a shop and get it done. So I remember we put the frame on the sidewalk and proceeded to smash the bearing cups in with a hammer and a 2x4. We got that bike built and we rode it. But God, I can't imagine, we did more damage installing parts than we actually did to those parts riding them. And it didn't get much better when you went to shops, believe it or not. I had a frame I took to a shop to get a bottom bracket put in one time. And the dude straight puts the cups, the bearings sitting in the cups on a profile crankset in the vise and just vice crushes the bearings into the frame. Bad enough he does that, right? And just like mangles the outside of the aluminum cups on the old American-sized bottom brackets. But those damn frames back then, like the tolerances were terrible also. So the bearings went in crooked and they were in there so tight and they put so much pressure on the bearings wouldn't even spin. You literally couldn't turn the bearing. That wasn't the end of it. I don't even believe there was a space room between the bearings. Then he proceeds to take the spindle, and we had to hammer the spindle through, right? The bearings, I don't even know if they lined up properly. So we actually hammered the spindle through. The spindle now is spinning, the bearings aren't spinning with the spindle, but the spindle's just spinning on the bearing like a bushing. That was terrible, dude. Brand new cranks, right? Dude, to buy profile cranks when I was young was it was a huge deal. And they were just destroyed the very first day they were installed. But I couldn't do any better myself. So it was what it was. And I remember complaining about it and saying, shit, dude, these they spin terrible. And the guy goes, oh, they'll break in. You just need to break them in. Break in the bearings. You just need to break them in. Oh, my God. Bunch of idiots. Oh, also Caveman Mechanics. Remember taking the chains apart with a rock and a nail? Yeah, did that a lot too. Boom. Enough rambling about that. Number 3. I'm going to call this category ghetto engineering. This isn't all bad. This isn't all goofy. Some of it is, but I'm gonna give props where props is due. So, along the lines of our bikes never running properly, one of the things that was just always happening is the headsets were coming loose, and we'd blame it because back in the day, the forks did not come with a compression cap built into it. So you'd buy the headset, and the headset had its own little compression bolt, little top cap, and a star nut. And the star nut, you're supposed to use a star nut setter, and you hammer it into the fork. Of course, we never had the proper tools, so we'd end up just smashing the star nut into the fork, and it would mangle it, and it wouldn't hold properly. Whatever the case was, our headsets never stayed tight. In fact, a lot of them, they were probably from cracked races and cracked lower cups and wallowed out frames and a million other reasons. But our solution to the problem was cool, right? So you go to Home Depot, you get a big long bolt. You run that bolt through the bottom of the fork, throw the nut up on top of the stem, and you crank that thing down. Now you don't have to worry about the star nut pulling out. And so just throughout the day, if your headset started loosening up, you could just take a big crescent wrench and just crank that thing down. It works so well, in fact, Kink came out with an actual product to buy called the I-Beam, and it was a big aluminum hollow bolt. And that was cool because with a regular bolt from Home Depot, you couldn't run a front brake. But the Kink I-Beam, it was hollow. You could put a front brake cable through it. It was also drilled so that you could run a caliper brake, like right through the fork still. And it worked great, man. In fact, that just reminds me of a lot of other cool stuff that Kink made at the time, right? Kink was like the OG pioneer with the big, thick quarter-inch sprocket, bash guards, the 415 chain. Before that, I think they were the first to market with the oversized chain, heat-treated chromoly headset cups that wouldn't crack. Like, Kink fixed a lot of our problems back in the day. So shout out to Kink for pioneering some of that stuff, man. It was pretty cool. A couple other things, that were kind of cool engineering-wise. It was like the London mod, right? That was... You got rid of the lower gyro cable, you ran dual cables, and you ran this thing called the London mod that was basically a cable stop so you could run dual cables. I don't know, a little harder to set up your brakes, but it looked cool. But it was, something that was functional. Mixed tires, I kind of mentioned that earlier, right? Running the knobby up front, the city or the street tire in the back. It worked, kind of a trend thing, of course. But then cutting weight, right? So it got to a point where the bikes... Yeah, they were overbuilt and beefy, but they were so freaking heavy. And finally, people start figuring out we need to lighten up these bikes. And so we take the hacksaw, and anything that wasn't being used was getting chopped, right? Any bit of XS axle was getting cut. XS seat post, cut. The bars, of course, cut. The other thing we'd end up chopping up is the dropouts. And a lot of times we had to chop those dropouts up because they were just made out of poor materials and they would smash closed and you couldn't get your wheel out. I remember buying a Hoffman Condor frame. It was the Taiwan-made one, right? It was like 98, 99. I was a week in when I got my first flat tire. No big deal, right? I flipped the bike over, go to pull the wheel out, wheels just jammed stuck. The entire dropout had like crushed closed and folded over. So I had to take an angle grinder and cut the whole backside of the dropout off. So once in a while, if you're on BMX Museum and you see some of these old mid-school frames, you'll see the dropouts are like missing the back little section of the dropout. And that's why, man. But it worked. But along those lines, right, let's talk about the goofy ghetto engineering that we did back then. Boiling rubbers, right? I got that on this list here. Boiling rubbers. What does that mean? It means our grips sucked. And our brake pads were always suspect. So we would boil the grips, right? Pot of water on the stove, get it boiling, drop the grips in there, and it would soften up the rubber. Those old like ODI long neck grips and, anything from like the early 90s, dude, you had to wear gloves. I don't understand how they didn't figure out to make grips with a softer compound of rubber back then. It's not like they couldn't do it, right? But they didn't. They made these like super hard grips that would just tear your hands up. So finally, I think the big turning point, like I know ODI came out with the long neck grip, and that was tolerable, especially once it broke in. But the thing was breaking them in. So that's where boiling came in. You'd boil these grips, and they were a lot softer, like right away. The problem was it would kind of screw with the compound or the rubber, and they'd get sticky, like really sticky, especially once you started sweating and you had the bike outside in the sun. You'd end up with the nastiest, tacky, sticky hands. Shout out to Animal for the Edwin grip. I think that was really a game changer in the grips, man. Like that really pushed grips into a space where they were like really soft and pliable right out of the box. Soda on the rims. How's that for ghetto? I never did this. I thought it was disgusting. But in the quest for better braking, I'd see kids take soda pop. They'd get a Coke or whatever, they'd shake it up, and they'd crack it, and they'd spray soda all over the rim of their tire, all over their rims, their tires, the brake pads, just to try and make it tacky and sticky, right? And it worked like temporarily, but it would attract dust and dirt, and then it was the nastiest mess. And worse than that, they would do the same thing to metal ramps at those prefab skate parks to try and get some extra grip on the ramp. Ugh, just disgusting, man. What else we got here? Tire in tire. This is a rare one, man. I only know a couple other people that remember some of us doing this. Beyond bikes that fell apart, our bikes are always getting, like, you would think a bike that beefy wouldn't like fall apart or get damaged up too quick, but they would get damaged all the time. For some reason, we could not air a quarter pipe without casing like every third air. And the higher you went, the harder you cased. Everybody was just plagued with pinch flats from just casing coping. And I swear, no matter how much pressure you ran, you would end up casing hard enough to just ding the crap out of your wheels, man. It wasn't until those big triple wall Alex rims came by that the dinging kind of stopped. But those old like Arias Super 7X rims, oh my God, dude, you hit a curb in that thing with not enough pressure, it's a wrap. Like you're smashing the sidewall of that rim. So the solution was to actually take a tire, cut the bead off of it, a smaller diameter tire than what you ran, and then you'd stuff that tire inside of your tire. Then you'd put the tube in, you wrestle it on, you'd probably use butter knives and a screwdriver and just ruin your rim putting the damn tire on. But it worked, right? It really helped with pinch flats. And the other thing too, since we were like super poor, when you wore through your tire, you still had a tire underneath. I was running a Hoffman skid mark with a Primo Comet tire inside of it. And I would wore holes all the way through that Hoffman skid mark and then rocked the inner tire for like another 2-3 months. It's crazy. It looks ghetto as hell. Also, man, what were we thinking, right? The bikes are already over 40 pounds, and now we're putting tire inside a tire on a triple wall rim. Like, yeah, it's a miracle we were ever able to learn anything on those bikes, man. No wonder riding has progressed so much because, yeah, I think our bikes are holding us back quite a bit. So, death to ghetto engineering. All right, number 2. Not really sure what to call this topic. I just wrote fruitcake. What rider do you think of when I say fruitcake? If you're a mid-school rider, you know who I'm talking about. That has nothing to do with him. What I'm talking about is all the weird names that we had for products. I think this is kind of an honorable mention category, actually. This is goofy mid-school stuff, but, you know, brands still do this to an extent. But we had it, I say we had it bad, but I think we had it kind of pretty good. It was funny, man. So Kink dropped the Sex Drive sprocket. That was like the first thing that I ever saw when I was a kid looking through Ride magazine that I was like, ooh, look at that. That's fucking, I want that shit. Like, you know, the homies are going to think that's a pretty funny thing to have on my bike, right? Like a sprocket with like some topless chick on it. Snafu had tires called the Rim Job. Primo had the little brake cable conversion thing called the Pervert. Of course, hemorrhoids. I just say, of course, hemorrhoids. Of course, Primo had the saddle, the seat called the Hemorrhoid. And then the post that went with it was called the Rod. You know, so you just had like all this like sexual innuendo or just funny stuff. I remember Bully had a handlebar called the Nudie Bar. Once again, had like, you know, some graphic of some like devil, you know, cartoon devil chick or something on it. And then like this isn't even bad, but I thought it was cool like when DK came out, the Peg Bundys, you know. I thought that was funny. But the king of the funny names on products, S&M Bikes, man. Shout out to Chris Moeller for keeping S&M and keeping BMX fun, you know. Dude, the menstrual cycle, the heavy as fuck. Of course, in the handlebar world, the slam bar was just in it. Later on, they put like a basketball graphic, like it was a slam dunk. But no, the slam bar was in reference to a gay bar, which they eventually just put out a bar called the Gay Bar. And I think that wins the funniest BMX product name. And yeah, it's hilarious. But in fact, if I'm sure there's 100 more BMX products with funny or interesting or clever titles, drop that in the comments too. What was your favorite product name in the mid-school era? So that was number 2. Number 1, goofy mid-school thing. That's up to you. You let me know. I could only come up with 9 of them, but I wasn't going to title this video Top 9 Goofy Mid-School Trends. So, drop in the comments below what you think the goofiest thing was or that you did in the mid-school era. I'll look forward to reading them, man. And that's pretty much it. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff if you found this entertaining. And till next time, I'm out.
When's the last time you rode your bike? Since
2 days ago, you motherfucker.